Strength of schedule makes such an impact, as we saw with Georgia just last year. They had to play Alabama in the regular season, and because of that game, they did not win the SEC East. They finished with 2 losses, tied with Florida. Of course, Florida won the tiebreaker. If they didn't have to play Alabama last year, and they finished with just that 1 loss to Florida, Georgia goes to the SEC Championship. They would then play Alabama and have a chance really to make it into the college football playoff. Maybe not even having to win that game. Just think about if they played them really, really tough. Maybe there would have been a path for them potentially to sneak in there. I don't know. But again, playing Alabama definitely made it a lot tougher on them. So let's take a look at the schedule for 2021 and see who they play. And you see right out of the gate, once again, there is going to be a very tough opponent. That's Clemson week 1. Could Clemson potentially keep Georgia out of the college football playoff this year? It's interesting. And again, you see these teams scheduling these really tough opponents, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. It's a risk. But I think the fact that they play Clemson in week 1, that's going to be good, because if they do lose that game, there's plenty of time for forgiveness. But let's see who they play outside of the division first, because we know who they're going to play in the SEC East, the teams they play every year, all the teams in the East. But these are the teams they play outside of the division. They'll play Clemson again in week 1. The game will be in Charlotte, neutral site game. Hopefully we have full capacity stadiums next year, and if we do, that is going to be a crazy environment and just a huge game. One of the biggest regular season games that I can remember in a long time, or at least a non-conference game, let's put it that way. Of course, there's been some huge conference games, particularly in the SEC. But you see UAB there also, a quality group of 5 team. UAB is not going to be a pushover, but still, that's not like they're playing a power team or anything. Charleston Southern FCS team. And then they'll play Georgia Tech, of course. They play them every year. Missed out on that rivalry last year. And Georgia Tech could be an interesting matchup this year. I mean, we'll see if they get better. They were not very good last year, but I think they have some young pieces. But anyways, they're 2 SEC West opponents. So you're talking about Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, a team I think is going to be a lot better this year. Probably the 3 teams you want to avoid out of the West. Well, Georgia avoids all 3 of them. They'll play Arkansas. Now, Arkansas proved last year that they are now a quality team. And I think they'll be better this year. So that's not going to be an easy win by any means. I don't know that you're going to find an easy win in the SEC West, period, this year. That division really getting better. But yeah, you got Arkansas there at home. They played them last year, of course. And then you have Auburn on the road, rivalry game. Never can take that for granted, but Georgia should be the better team. So Auburn and Arkansas, a great draw out of the West. Again, no Alabama, no Texas A&M, no LSU. You can't ask for much more than that. So that's the good news. Yes, you have to play Clemson in the non-conference, but you get a very good draw out of the SEC West, which I think gives Georgia a really, really good shot to win the SEC East if they can beat Florida, which I think they're going to be favored in that game. So let's go back to the schedule. They'll open up with Clemson there on September 4th. Game is in Charlotte. Just talked about it. Going to be a monster game, just a huge game. I don't think it's a must win for either team, but it's a must. Don't get blown out. I think if you get blown out in this game, it's going to be tough for the committee to give you another shot, unless you just run the table. But if you lose the game and it's competitive, I think you could still maybe afford another loss, and especially if you wind up winning your conference. So if Georgia, say, they lose somewhere on here. Let's say they just lose to Auburn, rivalry game on the road, but then they win the SEC. Or even if they win the rest of their games and lose in the SEC championship, let's say to an undefeated Alabama. So again, you want to be competitive even if you don't win that game. It's going to be a big one, though, for both teams there week 1. UAB on September 11th. Again, just talked about them a second ago. Quality team. I think UAB might be better than some of their SEC opponents this year. No, just being honest about it. South Carolina on September 18th at home. We know a couple of years ago, I think it was, South Carolina upset Georgia. I don't know that they're necessarily going to have the players to be able to do that this year. So that should be a good way to start SEC play. And then you get Vanderbilt after that on September 25th. So again, you're playing 2 of the bottom teams in the SEC East. So start off SEC play. After that Clemson game, they get a little bit of a break. It'll be Arkansas on October 2nd at home. Again, a quality team, but Georgia definitely is the better team. And the game is at home, so you should be able to start SEC play with 3 wins without too much trouble. And then it's Auburn on October the 9th. The game where, like I said, Georgia will be favored. They're the better team, I think, right now, looking at these two teams, and it's pretty clear. But it is a rivalry game. It is on the road, a very tough place to play, and Auburn is a team that we really just don't know what to expect from at this point. So that'll be an interesting matchup there. And then after that, they'll play Kentucky, another game that could be a little bit tricky. It's right before Florida. Now, the good news is they get a bye week between Kentucky and Florida, so they should not be looking ahead to Florida in this matchup. But Kentucky's a team that brings a lot back. Changes in the offense could help them. That's really all they've been lacking is that explosiveness on offense, a passing game. They've been able to run the football really with the best teams in the SEC, and they've had solid defense. So if they can open up the passing game, that might be a challenge for Georgia. We'll have to see how good Kentucky winds up being. And then Florida on October the 30th. The games will be in Jacksonville like it always is. And that's probably going to be the game that once again determines the SEC East. Maybe not. Georgia, I think, could lose this game, and it wouldn't shock me to see Florida with a couple of SEC losses. So, maybe if they do lose, they still would have a pretty good shot to win the East when you look at the rest of their schedule. Of course, Florida plays Alabama. They play LSU. They could lose a couple of games easily. You got Missouri on November the 6th. The game is at home. Missouri is a program that's on the rise. We saw that this past year. So that could be a bit of a test right after playing Florida. Then they'll play Tennessee on November 13th on the road. But, of course, Tennessee does not appear to be a threat this year. That program is really a mess right now. Charleston Southern after that on November the 20th. The game will be at home for Georgia, and, of course, an FCS opponent, before playing rival Georgia Tech on the road November 27th. And like I said, I'm just really looking forward to seeing these rivalries again. The Clemson, South Carolinas, Georgia, Georgia Techs, Iowa, Iowa State, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida, Florida State. I mean, all these non-conference rivalries that we did not get to see last year. Even though right now when you look at it, that game is probably going to be a blowout. Georgia should be able to take care of business. It's still going to be fun to watch. And you never know what you're going to get sometimes in these rivalry games. So again, when you look at the schedule for Georgia, I think it works out pretty well for them. Now, if you took Clemson off of this schedule, this would be looking really good for Georgia. They would have one of the easier schedules in the SEC, maybe the easiest schedule in the SEC. But throwing Clemson on there obviously makes this schedule a lot tougher. But I really like the Arkansas-Auburn draw out of the West. Of course, they play Auburn every year. So the Arkansas, the team that they draw to go along with Auburn, I like that. I like the easy start with South Carolina and Vanderbilt in the SEC play. I don't see any huge tests back-to-backs. They're probably their toughest back-to-back is going to be Florida and Missouri, which you don't have to, neither one of those games is a true road game. Kentucky on the road, or Kentucky at home after Auburn on the road, also could be a little bit of a challenge there, those two back-to-backs. But again, nothing major here. I think the schedule sets up really well for Georgia. I think the schedule definitely makes them the favorite in the SEC East. But of course, that big game, week 1 against Clemson, that's going to be, I think, their biggest test on this schedule.